everyone, Miss Carrie here from Miss Carrie's Creations. Today I want to show you how I made my vintage rose card for the Stencil It technique blog hop. Let's go ahead and get started. Here I have a piece of cardstock that measures 5 inches by 4 1/4. I'm using the grid lines on my Versamat to help me mask off a 1/2 inch at the top and at the bottom of this piece of cardstock so that I don't get any ink or texture paste on these two portions. I'm going to transfer this to my all-purpose mat so that I can start adding the stenciled images with Stickle gel and texture paste. I've chosen to use the lace stencil today. I'm placing it down onto that cardstock and then I'm just going to tape it in place. And I've grabbed this Stickle glitter gel. This kind of reminds me of slime with its consistency. It has some cute little gold stars in it and it leaves a really pretty glitter finish through the stencil. I did realize after I added all of this onto the front of the card base that this stencil was not the right stencil to use with this paste. When I lift up the stencil here, you're going to see that the stars kind of crept under the delicate parts of this stencil. So if you end up using this type of gel for stenciling, you might want to get a larger stencil or apply it a little bit more delicately than I did. Now, because those stars went under the stencil, I decided to try this technique with a different product. This time I'm going to be using diamond Stickles. I still wanted to be able to use the lace stencil for this project, and I still wanted a glitter background. So I grabbed the diamond Stickles, and I'm just squirting a great big blob down here on my all-purpose mat, and I'm going to apply it over the top of the stencil. You're going to want to only use a little bit of gel at a time. Unlike texture paste, you cannot put this back in the jar. I only used 2 dollops of the Stickles to create my background. You might end up using more or less. Just remember you only want to use a little bit at a time. But once you're finished, you end up with this beautiful glitter background. Now this background is perfect as is, but I wanted it to look like etched tile. So I need to build that background up just a little bit. Now that the Stickles are dry, I'm going to place that stencil back down over the image. Again, I'm going to tape it in place, and this time I'm going to grab some clear, glossy texture paste. I'm going to place a layer of this over the Stickles. Now it looks like it's starting to take away all of that glitter and shine as I add the texture paste. But once this texture paste dries, it does have a clear, glossy finish. So the Stickles are going to show through that layer of texture paste, and we're going to have a nice, thick, etched stencil image on the top of our card. As you can see, now that everything is nice and dry, we have this beautiful glitter image on the background that has that lace design. I want to really bring out all of those details. So I've grabbed some Tattered Rose Distress Oxide ink, and I'm just going to apply this ink all over the back of the card. I'm going to do a couple layers of this so that I can really bring out all of those little lace details. If you haven't had a chance to play with these inks, you really need to take a look at my friend Lisa's videos. I'm going to put the link up above if you want to take a look. I know these inks have been around for a while, but they are new to me, and I am just starting to learn what I was missing. I'm really enjoying how well they blend on a background, and I just really like that chalky finish once they have dried. All right, so now that we've applied a good thick layer of ink, we can use a paper towel to remove the ink from the texture paste, and that will bring back all of that glitter and shine. Now all we have to do is remove the masking from the edges. I'm just going to clean up my mess here real quick, and then we're going to start pulling off that Post-it tape. If you don't feel like you have a very clean edge, you can take a craft knife and score it right along the edge of that texture paste. Mine seemed to pull off just fine with a few of the rough edges, but I really liked the look of that rough edge, so I just left it as is. If it really bothers you, you could trim it with a paper trimmer and then adhere this onto another piece of white cardstock. Take a look at that background. It honestly reminds me of old world tile. I love how it turned out with just that little bit of sparkle showing through. All right, so here I have a piece of vellum that is 1.5 inches wide, and I'm just going to wrap it around that card front. Whenever I apply vellum to a card, I always try to find a way to wrap it behind so that I don't have to add any adhesive that would show behind the vellum. After adhering the vellum onto the front of the card, I'm going to adhere this down onto a piece of craft cardstock that measures 5.5 by 4 1/4. Then we're going to glue that craft cardstock down onto a card base. Because I love that background so much, I decided not to complicate this card, and I've chosen to just use this Thanks thin cuts to create a very simple sentiment. I've already cut the shadow layer out of Bluebell glitter paper, and now I am just poking out the letters that I cut from Bluebell cardstock so that I can get ready to glue them down onto that shadow layer. I did use the lighter side of the Bluebell cardstock so that it stands out a little bit more. Sorry about the little camera bump here. A family member just walked right into my camera mount. Alright, so this part of the video I have sped up significantly because you could probably figure this out on your own. I've just grabbed some Tombow glue and my tweezers to assist me as I lay down each one of those letters on the shadow layer. This glue does allow you to move the letters around a little bit before it sets. I do suggest that you grab yourself a stamping block or a weight and place it over the top so that it can set a few minutes before you add it to the card. So I let this sit for about 5 minutes, and now the glue is all set and it's ready to place onto the card. Don't you just love the look of that Bluebell glitter? I normally don't use much glitter on my projects, but I have been trying to use up my stash, and this Bluebell glitter was just calling my name. As you can see, I've grabbed some 3D foam dots and I'm adding these to the back of the sentiment. These will allow it to pop up a little bit off the card front and just give it a little bit more dimension. The last step is to add some Bluebell glitter gems onto the card. I didn't want to take away anything from that background. I love the look of that dusty rose, but I did want to highlight the text just a little bit, so I chose to use gems that are the same color as that fun glitter paper. I do want to admit to you that adding gems is always the hardest part for me. I'm never quite sure where to put them on my project. So you're going to see me adjust them and move them around a little bit here before I get the look that I like. I would love to hear any of your tips or tricks for figuring out where to put gems on a project. Go ahead and put those in the comments below. And now our old world lace card is complete. I just love how this turned out. We were able to take Stickles with some transparent gloss texture paste to create that stenciled lace background. We also used that Tattered Rose Distress Oxide ink so that we could make that stencil image really stand out. We were able to also create a very simple sentiment using those Thanks thin cuts. I just love the look of that Bluebell glitter paper. I hope that you were inspired by today's project and that you try a few of the new techniques you learned today on one of your future creations. If you enjoyed today's video and wish to see more in the future, go ahead and click that subscribe button so that you are notified when new videos are added. If you wish to see more projects like this one, you can click on the collection icon above. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I can't wait to see what you create.